Hi everybody! We are live from the mYak Tibetan Fibers channel here on YouTube for a new episode. Today I have a super duper special guest. After last week mishap, I was supposed to have her as a guest, and instead I made a mistake with the date. So today I'm here with Gudrun Johnston. Hi Gudrun!
Hello! Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And you are going to be my last guest live from the studio. So it's going to be a very, very special episode, I think.
Thank you, I'm so honored.
You're going to wrap a series of chats that we have managed to have with a little bit, here in the studio. We will continue the chats and we will continue to have guests, so no worries. I will just figure things out going forward. Yeah. But I think today we are in for a very special treat because I am a big fan of Gudrun, and I've been a fan for a long time. So she's going to talk about a lot of samples, but also about Scotland and Shetland, all of her history and experiences, inspiration for design. So definitely. And I will try to talk less this time to give more space to our guests. So, but I'm sure everybody knows you. But do we want to start a little bit with your background?
Okay. Well, so originally I was born in the Shetland Islands. So 1974. My parents lived there for about 13 years, and they had all of their children there. But I was about 5 when they left and moved to mainland Scotland. So mostly I grew up in different parts of Scotland, on the west coast and Edinburgh. And in, 96, 97, I met my husband, who's American, and he came to Scotland, and we were married within a year of meeting each other. Coming up on 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started to then spend time in the States around that, around 96, 97. But we've gone back and forth. We have spent time living in Scotland as well. We have 2 children who are grown-ups now. And it was during the process of when my daughter was 5, actually, that I kind of got back into knitting. I had learned as a child. And did it for a fairly brief period of time when I was probably around 10 or something like that. We moved to Western Massachusetts so this was 2004, I think, something like that. And we had been living in Scotland before that. We moved back to the States, moved there, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who are doing fiber-related things there. And it was new to me in the sense of I wasn't knitting at the time, and I wasn't really doing any of those kind of crafts at that point in my life. But I was spurred to knit something for my daughter because she had this blanket somebody else had made for her when she was born, and we lost it. And she was very attached to it, and so I walked past a yarn store in Western Mass and saw this poncho in the window, and I just walked in and got the pattern and made her this poncho, and she still has it.
Wow.
And that was really the instigation, because I found that, my fingers remembered so much, even from so long ago. And as I said, my community was very sort of into the fiber arts. So a lot of people that I was meeting, other parents, were knitting and spinning and all of this kind of thing. So I quite quickly got, totally absorbed in knitting all the things. And then also quite quickly I started to experiment myself, to not follow a pattern and try something on my own. And at the same time as we moved to Massachusetts, my parents retired back to Shetland. So it kind of coincided when I started to knit again and then also design, that I had this place that I was returning to on my trips back to Scotland that had this, I knew it had this amazing knitting heritage. So it was very natural for me to investigate that, and look into it more on my trips there. So I feel very fortunate that those 2 things happened at the same time. So from the very beginning, my designing has been very influenced by Shetland and by the knitting traditions there, and continues, to this day. I go there a lot. I spend a lot of time in Shetland, and now I run trips there with Mary Jane Mucklestone. So, under normal circumstances, we would be there every summer for, sometimes 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, I have come to reconnect a lot with Shetland, which has been amazing for me.
Wow. It's and we will talk about more. We will talk more about Shetland as well, because I'm fascinated, and I have a personal love for Scotland since I started going there. Only twice actually, for the Edinburgh Film Festival,
Right.
Yarn Festival, and then I traveled around as well. And I just, I thought, oh, wow. And Shetland has always been a dream of mine. I've been up, high up on the some of the other islands, and I love them. But and I know that your trips with Mary Jane are supposed to be amazing. I've seen quite a few people that have been there and posting and doing, and it's always been on my wish list. So I do hope that you will start again, so I can come.
Yeah.
We not do much of the knitting part, but I will definitely enjoy. I will enjoy the rest. But before we go into samples and things like that, I have to tell people how we actually met, because it's for me it's kind of a funny story. So I've been as I said, I've been a fan. I've been following you, all of your especially the shawls, but also all of the design, and I could see all the Shetland influence. And but because I'm very shy, I hardly approach people. And we have a list, of course, of designers that we would love to work with, and the list is very long because we have so many ideas. And but I was never been, I never able to just approach somebody or write to somebody out of the blue and say, hey, would you like to try our yarn? Which has been, kind of difficult, because I'm supposed to be the one that approaches the designers. And so 1 year, it was like a year ago actually, 2 years ago now, we had a booth at the Vogue Knitting Live. I was with my daughter in the elevator, coming down from our room to go to the booth. And we went into the elevator, and my daughter looked up at the lady that was next to us and said, "Mom, look how beautiful colors this shawl is." And she was only 5.5 by then, or almost 6. And I looked up, I was all busy in the morning trying to get my head ready to go to the booth and do the opening the booth. And I looked up and I saw Mary Jane. And I was like, oh, that's Mary Jane Mucklestone. And I was so like a fangirl moment. And I didn't say anything. She was basically next to me, standing next to me, and I didn't say anything. I just went like, nothing. She left, went probably for breakfast. And my daughter looked at me and she said, "That was really pretty." And I said, "I know, she's a famous designer." And I thought, why didn't I even say hi, anything? I could have it could have been, that was my chance of saying something, and I didn't. And but the next day, you and Jane, Mary Jane, actually walked by our booth, because I think Kay suggested, a common friend suggested that you come that way. And when I saw the two of you approaching, not just Mary Jane, but you as well, I think I had a moment of like, okay, I need to be strong. I need to do this. I need to talk to them, not hide. And of course, my team was there as well. And then you stopped and introduced me, and I think for a moment I was like speechless. And I think I said something silly like, "Oh, I'm a big fan." But I think that was the time, finally, with just like the last Vogue Knitting, so 1.5 years ago, after all of this time I've been following you. And you were so kind. I think, both you and Mary Jane, I think so approachable as well. Is, despite being, published designers, in magazines and with bigger brands and everything. And you said to me, yes, I would like to try some of your yarn. So I'm like, oh, so that was, the story was a long one.
And I think it's so interesting to hear that, because I feel the same way, especially at big events. And I love, teaching at Vogue, but sometimes because the teaching is very busy, so we're in the room all day, and I don't have very much time, in between classes. So a lot of the time I don't even go to the marketplace because it's so busy, and there's so many people, and I have the same feeling of seeing, other people that I want to talk to, and it's so busy that I feel I'm not very pushy about, in crowds of people. I don't sort of push my way in, and I tend to not want to be in that kind of space. So I understand completely, yes, just kind of not taking that step to just say hi to somebody. And I also don't know, will they know me? Do they know anything about me? Or so
Oh yeah.
But I'm very glad that we spoke.
Of course people know about you. I think it's it goes without saying it. I think you're very much associated in a way with, almost, as a couple in a way, on a traveling couple with Mary Jane as well, but of course for yourself. We also have a chat, live chats going on. Please send us your likes, your little hearts. We love that when you comment. Send us questions as well. I'll monitor the chat. Gudrun is not able to see that. But I have Francesca, who is Italian, but she lives here in the US, that says she would love to go to the Shetland trip, but she just ordered the yarn for the Valtigarth Shawl, so she's going to enjoy that for the time being. So, but let's talk. I think your inspiration is it comes from Shetland, and we will talk more about the Shetland trip. But I'm really curious. I know we should talk about it later in your. How was it growing up there? I mean, I know that you were small, and then you moved to, when you say mainland Shetland, Scotland. Where did you move, and how was it to grow up in there? And when did you lose your accent?
I don't even know what accent I have anymore, because some people think I have an accent, other people don't, and obviously my family, the ones who are still in Scotland, can hear that I sound more American. I think because we lived in different parts of Scotland, I didn't ever really pick up, one particular regional accent. So there are words that come out, and if I'm speaking to my family on the phone, or I just come back from Scotland, then it's stronger. But in terms of a Shetland accent, no. I mean, the Shetland dialect is very different than the rest of Scotland, and so no, I don't have that kind of lilt or accent at all to my voice. And like I said, I was only 5 when my parents moved. So I don't have very strong memories of being in Shetland. It's almost more that, my memories come from photos and stories that have been told to me. My older brother, he was probably around 10 or 11 when we left, so he has a lot more memories than the rest of us. And he has actually just recently moved back there permanently. So I think a lot of my memories of Shetland have kind of come through my parents and photographs, and then with spending so much time there in the last kind of 15 or so years, it's also been reconnecting with family friends, and hearing them remember me as a kid as well. That has kind of informed things. My parents lived in a lot of different places in Shetland during the time that they were there. And one of the sort of significant places was an old croft that my dad completely renovated from a ruin. And, we were definitely living off the land, so to speak. I mean, we weren't off grid, but it was a very, self-sufficient type of existence, I suppose. And that was, during the time that my mum was running a knitwear business in Shetland. So again, I have no memory of that because I was too little. But when they moved away from Shetland, my mum sold that business, and then she wasn't really involved in knitwear at all for the rest of my childhood, So when we left, we actually moved to England for a year first because my mum is English, and I think she kind of missed some things about it. So we tried that for a year, and then we moved back to Scotland. And a big part of my childhood was spent on an island on the west coast of Scotland called the Isle of Rum. So it's beside the Isle of Skye. It's the Inner Hebrides. And this island is a nature reserve, and my dad's career was in nature conservancy. So that's what took us there. So I had a very special experience living on that island. I mean, it's different from Shetland in terrain, and it's much closer to the mainland, but it was an island existence in that there were only 8 or 10 families at the most there. At one point it was just my younger brother and myself in the school, so it was I have very strong memories of that time because I was kind of 8 to about the age of 11 that we lived there. And then all my teenage years and some college was in Edinburgh. So so Edinburgh is definitely super familiar to me, and was home for a long time.
We have Gabriela following us from Brazil, and she says she loves your designs and your inspiration from Shetland. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us are. I think the colors that you choose, I think, can we talk, before we talk about a sample, can you talk about your color inspiration a little bit? Because it's so unique.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the funny thing is that there are so many colors in the Shetland landscape, I mean, surprising colors sometimes. Although you might sort of think that it's all kind of, browns and oranges and all that kind of thing. They have in the summertime some really bright, wildflowers and things like that. I guess I have always gravitated towards those more autumnal colors, the sort of oranges and browns and things like that. And I mean, in terms of traditional Fair Isle and choosing colors, I didn't grow up kind of learning that or taking that approach. My introduction to it kind of came from outside. So a lot of what I do in terms of color work, patterns that are inspired by Shetland aren't necessarily super traditional, approaches to Fair Isle knitting, where so many colors can be used within one design, so you have all your different background colors happening as well as the pattern colors, and that's a very, very skilled thing for sure that Shetland knitters are pretty amazing at, picking those colors. And there's a certain amount of preference, I think, for people who want a more subtle look to the Fair Isle versus a pattern that's, using bolder colors. And Shetland knitwear itself has gone through different fashions in that sense, where it's been influenced by Scandinavian, patterning and colors and things like that. So for me, it definitely is often a landscape thing where I'm sort of drawing out colors that, speak to me from a landscape. And if you're working with Shetland yarn, there are so many colors to choose from as well. You could really, any color you can think of, you can find it. So that makes it easier and also overwhelming at the same time.
I was going to say, I mean, when you look at all of the palette of the colors that is available, and in the various brands that they have that. I mean, for me, it's overwhelming. And, sometimes I'm looking at them, and I remember when I was in Edinburgh and looking around, and I was like, wow, I wish I could have all of these colors for our yarn as well. But then I think, no, maybe it's too many. I would get confused. But that's true. Somebody says that, Francesca again says that she can't wait for your new book release, and we will talk about that. So, make sure you stay and watch, because Gudrun is going to talk about that, and she has a couple of samples as well that she can, I think, we can show. But let's talk about how we started, after that meeting, how we started collaborating, and the first design that you created with our yarn. Unfortunately, I don't have that, but you have it. So we started with a series of hats. It's like with you, it's like not one. It's not one design. When she said, "I'm doing a hat," and you come out with like 4, 3.
Yeah, and I think partly that was because we're all big hat wearers in my house, and I wear hats all the time in the winter time, and even indoors sometimes if I'm feeling cold, I like to have a hat on. And I really like a kind of snug hat that covers my ears well, especially if I'm outside, and in Shetland in particular it can be very windy, so you want something that's going to protect your ears. And then my husband, he tends to wear a shorter cap most of the time. So, and my son was living with us when I was designing this hat, and he's sort of more into that watch cap beanie style. So that was why I ended up with 3 different ones, because I was kind of like, oh, well, wouldn't it be fun to just, use that same stitch pattern, but have some options as to...
for the entire family.
Yeah, for the entire family. And speaking of which, the sample that is the watch cap that I did in the orangey color.
Saffron.
Yes. So my son took that away with him when he left, because he wears it all the time. And so I don't have that sample with me, but this is the ear flap version. So, and again, all these things are optional, which I feel like I'm doing more and more of that in my own pattern writing. And I think it's something that knitters really appreciate, to have a few different options of, obviously you can look up and do things yourself, but it's nice to have those instructions, So for this, the ear flaps, are done afterwards, so you don't have to have ear flaps. And then again,
can you show it a little bit better towards the, yes. So, okay, so before anybody gets start asking questions, we are going to put all of the names and the links down below in our description box. So you don't need pen and paper. We will do that for you. But this is the Hallival hat that comes in 3 versions and was designed with our baby yak medium, with a baby yak medium in different colors.
Yes, exactly. So same stitch pattern on each hat. This one is a longer body to it, and like I said, it has the ear flaps, and it has these optional tassels as well. And then the beanie version, it has a deeper brim, but it's shorter overall, so it's going to sit closer, on the head. Like I said, my husband's preferred style. And then the watch cap, which I don't have because my son took it, it has, the length is somewhere in between, and the shaping is a little bit different on the top, and also the brim is double, so it's sort of a double thickness on the brim.
Oh, maybe that's why I took it as well, because it's going to be super warm.
Yes, exactly. So 3 different versions, to choose from. And it's a twisted stitch pattern that's used on it. Pretty easy to.
And so this version, the watch cap only needs 1 skein of yarn, and the other needs 2 skeins. So it's 1.5 really, but almost 2 skeins of yarn. The one with the double brim, especially, you will use a little bit more. And I think there are different sizes as well. And no. Maybe not. No, sorry.
No, I think
cancel that. Erase that.
No, there are different sizes, just different styles.
Yeah, different styles. Yes. But it's perfectly fine. And you can see more photos on Ravelry, of course. All the patterns are. So your patterns are available on Ravelry and somewhere else as well.
And on Payhip as well.
On Payhip as well. Yeah. So. If you just follow, and we will just try to put some of the links as well down below. And actually, it's 1 pattern with 3 versions, right?
Yes.
So you just get, with 1 pattern, you get the 3 versions, and you just get, some baby yak in your stash or any worsted weight yarn. I dare you to knit it in any other yarn. It would be nice, because I think I don't know, maybe, it says a lot that your son took it away, because I think the baby yak is, it doesn't peel, it's very soft, warm, and doesn't make the hat hitch. I don't know if your husband says the same, but the watch cap, my husband, when he has the hat down here, I can see in a lot of other yarn, he just sort of pulls it off and he starts doing like that.
Right.
And with Baby Yak is, would Tibetan Cloud work too? That was one of the questions.
It would be thinner, so probably you would have to make some adjustments to your stitch repeat. So if you're comfortable doing that, then you certainly could do it so that you are working at the correct gauge for Cloud.
Yeah. Or you could just take Cloud and add, I know it's going to be more expensive, but if you want it, it becomes even softer if you get the Cloud and a strand of the lace Baby Yak together. I think,
nice.
And then you can even have some marlin effect going on with the stitch and the marlin. So, maybe we'll show the stitch a little bit less, but I think that could work too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or you could use the new cashmere as well. That's another, just in case you feel like asking your husband for a little gift. I know, actually, Father's Day is in the US is coming up. So you can say, darling, if you buy me the yarn, I will knit the watch cap for you, and I just need a couple of skein for myself, so you can do that as well. We say it's great to have the option. I wear a hat most of the year, teaching in school in Maine and spending lots of time outdoor. Thank you for giving the choices. My son is 15, loves mYak yarns, or yak yarns. Oh, good. Good to know. So we started with the hat, and then we didn't stop there, because then you wrote back, say, hey, I have my Audrey cardigan coming out, and you wanted to try and have a version in Tibetan Cloud, correct? Yes.
That's right. Yes. So this is a pattern that I originally published with Twist Collective, which is no longer in existence. But it was an early design for me, so early in my career, I published this pattern with them, and it was always very popular. And so last year I decided it would be good to revamp it, to redo the pattern, extend the sizes, just kind of, add in some more instructions and again, this whole thing of options, different things that people can do, choose from in the pattern. So this one has 3/4 length sleeves. The original version had 3/4 length sleeves and is, I would say it's a cropped cardigan. So I added another alternative where it's more of an A-line shape that you can choose from instead if you want a more relaxed fit.
I love A-line shape. It just covers up a little, it just covers that area that needs to be covered. Especially after 1 year of pandemic, the area is sort of like becoming a little bit rounder. So the A-line shape is perfect.
Yes, so I have the A-line shape. This is not mYak yarn, but you can see, this one is longer. It also is a bit curved at the bottom as well, and has long sleeves. But yes, this is the version in Cloud, and I love it. It came out really beautifully, perfect. The original was in a sport weight yarn, so wanted to do it again in sport weight. So that's Audrey and Unst.
So this one is more cropped, you said, but also this one has long sleeves, right?
3/4.
3/4, perfect. I love 3/4.
So it's Audrey. It's a little bit more cropped and 3/4 length sleeves. And the lace pattern is a traditional Shetland lace, which it's a bit of an unusual lace pattern where you are slipping stitches and kind of pulling over a stitch over 3 stitches there. So it's quite simple to work. It almost looks a bit crochet-like, so I really liked it, and
sounds good. I love it. If you say it's simple, sure.
Well, compared to a lot of Shetland
compared to something else, it's simple. So it's a nice, there's a nice one to try.
Yes.
So that definitely, and that was in Tibetan Cloud in Salice Grigio, I think that you use, or gray, which is a great color that goes on everything and it fits everything.
Lovely.
It fits A shape, A line, tulipano in gray, perfect. It's just like that's the pullover you need to have this winter, also in fall because it's warm enough already for fall. And from Audrey then we went to the wonderful Valtigarth Shawl.
Yes.
And that was that was amazing actually, because when you just sent me, I said, oh, I want to make a shawl. And then you asked for some yarn and I'm like, and then all of this gorgeousness came out. And I'm like, wow.
Well, yes, I wanted to work more with both of those yarns, the cloud and in the lace, the baby yak lace as well. So this is the cloud version, and again this is a twisted stitch pattern. And I started off by, I knew so many of my shawl designs are based on a modern hat construction, which is a Shetland construction. And we'll talk more about that as well, but a lot of my shawls have used that as a starting point kind of for just how I'm going to construct the shawl. So I knew I wanted to do that for this one, but instead of using Shetland lace, I use these twisted stitches instead. And with the way that this is constructed, you can easily make little mini versions of the shawl, which is really nice to kind of see, if all the parts are going to work together, so I did that first, and this shawl has 2 different sizes, and you can knit either in either weight. We had some people, knit the large, I think, in the lace and vice versa. So the large version, which is this one in cloud, is definitely in a really big cozy shawl, which is great. Again, I wear shawls a lot. Not in the height of summer where I live, but again, in the house, I like my neck to be warm, so I'm always wearing shawls, so can't have too many, basically. So that's that one. This one is in a darker color, so it is a little bit harder to see it.
Well, you can still see it. We can still see it, and I know we show our samples. I think we have the same color, actually,
Yeah, maybe this one is the same color.
Yeah.
I love this color so much.
It's that Tibetan sky,
favorite. Yeah, and it's knit at a slightly, looser gauge, but I love the subtlety of how the twisted stitches show up in the lace. And, it makes this obviously a much lighter shawl if you don't need something quite as warm, then knitting it in the lace is an alternative. So. Yeah. And
you said something about the bind off, the I-core bind off. That is.
So maybe I'll show you on this one. I did a purled I-cord bind off all along the top edge.
It's so pretty.
So it kind of looks like a garter stitch. Bind off instead, and I hadn't done that before. And so that was really fun to kind of, that's always fun for me, and I think for many designers when you pick up something new that you haven't tried before and use it in a design, and that was one of those things that was new for me. And because there are other garter stitch elements in the shawl, it just helps to tie in those things together. So
it's sweet. So this one, let me move my bottle. So the first one that you did is in Tibetan Cloud. The one that you knit is done with our Cannella color, which is in a very, very popular. It's a deep rust and it's very nice, very, very soft. We went wild with the sample just because we had a few test knitters and they all loved using our own yarn. So we had actually one test knitter that she knit a sample for us in the red, in Tulipano. I think I just posted it yesterday. We are waiting, Monica in the Netherlands has knit this one. When I asked her, you know, are you going to do the large one or the medium one? And she went with the medium but it looks so big already that it was perfect. So, but any color of the Tibetan Cloud, I think it would be really good, even if you have some of the greens, neutrals, the greens, and the pinks, of course. You know, who doesn't want to have a pink shawl as well? But definitely the Tibetan Cloud, it knits up quite quickly, and it shows the stitch really well. I think it just really shows off that. And you know, my advice is always to really soak it and wash it and then block it out, and you know, even if you want to soak it all night with your favorite wool washes, you will see the difference between how it blooms after that. Yes. And the second version that you show is in the baby yak lace. I think we both have the Tibetan Sky. Is very nice and soft. It's a completely different feeling. And now I have air conditioning on here because it's so hot, and I had this on for 1 hour and 36 minutes to be exact. And the baby yak is very good it's very breathable, and it's very light, so I don't even feel that I have it on. And so this particular version, and also this has a nice story, but let me see if I can show you as well a little bit better, maybe with my camera. I have a little bit extra light here. You can see the stitch better down here. So you can see that. You can still, the lightness. I wish, with always these things, they're doing this thing virtually. It's like, I wish people could just feel it, because it's so nice and soft. And is as a nice size. I think this is just 2 skeins of the baby yak lace. You can see the size. And our friend Reiko was a test knitter. I didn't even know she was knitting it until I posted the first picture, and she said, "Oh, I'm knitting that one." There was 3.
That was the pink ones too.
Yeah. Sorry, it's 3 skeins. Right. No, 100%. Yeah. So she, sorry, I lost my. So she was knitting. She was in the test knit, and then she finished it, and she shipped it to me as a present. And I was like, "What is that?" And then she said, "I just want you to have it because it's so, it's so special." And I said, "But it's, don't use it as a mYak sample. This one is just for you." So this one is coming to Italy with me at the end of the month, and I'm going to travel around Italy, so I'm going to have it. Thank you, Reiko, for doing this.
That's lovely.
And it's funny because, if people, have been following us, or people that know me, they know that I am a lover of pink. But recently, I'm into this blue trip, blue and green trip. You can see it today. I'm like, okay, let me start wearing more blues and greens. But of course, when I asked for our other sample knitter who also test knitted, we had to go with the pink.
That's so beautiful as well.
So I must say this one is going to come with me too. So I can wear both of them together if it gets really cold. I'm going up in the mountains, so it's definitely going to be much colder. But this is so pretty. It's I love both versions, but the Tibetan Cloud and this one. This is like, with the 2 skeins. It's not even 2 skeins. I think it's like something you can put in your bag like that, and it's just, I don't want to. And that is done with the dusty pink. The color of as usual, remember that the colors that you get might not be exactly the one from the sample, because once a lot number is finished and we have the new production, they could be lighter, they could be darker, and most probably darker this time around. I just want you to show you the dusty pink of the 3 season that we have. So this is this one is the current one. But this is from 2 previous seasons as well. So we don't know what the next one is going to come, because it really depends on the base that are dyed on. And if you look, these are bases that are dyed on the oatmeal. and those three are oatmeal. Depends on the season, depends on the environment, what the animal eats, or anything else. So, you know, I'm always say the sample.
Interesting, yeah.
Exactly. And I always say the sample that we show not necessarily is going to be exactly the same shade of what you get. It could be lighter and that, but I must say that both versions. I'm looking forward to get the version in Tibetan Cloud, the red one as well, so that I will pick it up in Italy when we go. So that is going to be. And so the pattern again is available on Ravelry and PayHip. We have yarn kit for Hallival, Audrey, and Valtigarth on our website. You can just pick and choose what you like, and you don't have to think. You just click, and there is also a direct link to the. I think we put a link to Ravelry, not PayHip. So we have a couple of questions. Is the shawl reversible? Ciao, Luciana. Sorry.
Not technically, no. I mean, there is a different kind of texture on the other side, but it's much more subtle compared to the right side of the shawl, which has, because of the twisted stitches, it has quite a high relief. You know, it sort of almost sticks out slightly. So the reverse side of the shawl does not show that.
But you know, you say no. I understand how you don't. You know, let's see it here, so you can see how this one stands out.
Yeah.
But I'm turning it around. Is as pretty.
I mean, it's just a different. It's a different texture. That's all.
It's just a different texture. It's not. You know, would I say I don't see? Actually, I had this one on reverse. You know, I just figured it out when I put it out that it was on reverse, and I don't think that, you know, then we'll have some chat, somebody come and say, why did you put on the reverse? If you comment on that, don't. But greeting from Northern California. Have to go, but wanted to say I love her most recent Baltigarth, which I want to make in mYak Cloud. Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you.
So this was a very popular, popular design, and I think it's really nice also to knit in the summer because it's, you know, especially if you make the smaller version, it's a traveling project. If you finally start going somewhere, even if you go on a day trip, if you finally get on a train or a plane or something else, I think is going to be really good.
Yes, and a lot of the testers definitely responded that, you know, once they'd done a few repeats of the pattern, they could remember it as well. So
that's good.
Pick up and not have to look at the pattern all the time.
Right.
Either. So another thing I wanted to mention too about the twisted stitch patterns, the pattern that's in the center triangle of the shawl, that is a sort of adapted version of a pattern from Nora Gaughan's Twisted Stitch source book.
Oh yeah.
Which is an amazing dictionary of different twisted stitch patterns. And what I love about it too is that she includes text basically where she's encouraging people to use these patterns and to experiment with them and try things. So I kind of knew that I wanted to use this in this shawl design. And then the twisted stitch pattern that's on the edging of the shawl is called Little Wave. And I believe I first saw it in the Barbara Walker, one of the Barbara Walker stitch dictionaries, and I used it on a cardigan that I did for Brooklyn Tweed several years ago, which is called Little Wave. So that cardigan has the same stitch pattern on it, and the two, combined together, I liked them because they both have these elements of garter stitch in them as well, which is typically what Shetland shawls are done on, is a garter stitch background. So a lot of the shawl knitting that I do involves garter stitch.
Oh wow. It's very subtle, but so I think is you know, elegant, versatile, and it's not like you know, like something that becomes heavy, and very comfortable to wear and to look at. So I'm just looking, you know, I'm just looking at myself and be happy. So what do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about some of the other, shall we talk about the hap?
Yeah. So I mentioned that the construction for Valtigarth is based on what is considered a modern hap construction. So in Shetland, the word hap just means shawl. So if somebody's knitting a hat, they're knitting a shawl. And the traditional Shetland hat was, you can see some versions of it here. Typically they're square shape.
Oh, look at that.
So yeah, so typically they'd be square. And
love that.
usually they'd have a plain garter stitch center. Then they have this border section, which in Shetland, this lace pattern is called Old Shell or Old Shale, but it's like feather and fan. And, you know, different colors are used in the border section to stripe here. And then an edging is attached as the sort of last part of the shawl. So, you know, these have been knit in Shetland for a long time, and they were, you know, at one point worn by women as a piece of outerwear. They would fold it in half and put it over their shoulders, tuck it into their aprons, and with the Shetland wool, and especially worn folded in half, you know, it was a good protective piece of clothing. But they would also knit these fine lace hats, which would be the same construction, but with very intricate lace patterns. And mostly those were sold and exported away from Shetland. So we're talking about in the 1800s, you know, when knitting was a source of supplemental income for a lot of these women. So obviously people still knit hats today in Shetland. Usually these kind of hats are often made for a newborn baby. So hap is also, it's a medieval word that means to wrap snugly. So, you know, there's photos of me in a hat in Shetland when I was born, and, you know, if you're a baby born in Shetland, you probably get several hats, you know, from family members. So I think one of the very first knitting events that I went to, that I was teaching at, I was teaching sort of how to make a Shetland hat. And so I wrote up a pattern kind of for instructions for that. So I mentioned with the construction, there is an older traditional method of making these hats where you start from the outside. So you start with your edging first, and then you're working kind of into the center of the shawl. And in that construction, there are more pieces that are grafted together and seamed together, which Shetlanders are very good at doing. But at some point, this modern method came about where you start from the center and work out the way. So that's the method that I use when I knit a traditional hat, but it's also been the jumping off point for a lot of my shawl designs. And in that case, so this is a hat, but it's a half hat. So instead of a square, it's a triangle.
What's the name of this one and the previous one? I'm sure that people will ask.
They're both called Hansel, Hanfel. And if you purchase them on Ravelry, you get instructions for both the full and the half.
So one is the full version, one is the half version, the one that we saw before. And for the one that you saw before, you also start from the center, so it's like tons of garter?
Yes,
first.
exactly. So you start basically here. So you start at this point with one stitch, and you're making yarn overs at the beginning of every row to increase, so that will shape the triangle. And if you're making the full hat, you would get to your widest point, and then you would start to get rid of a stitch. So that you have a diamond shape in the center, instead of just a triangle. And then you pick up along the edges of either your triangle or your diamond, and then you work the border section. And then you attach the edging to the live stitches of the border. So essentially with this modern method, you're starting from the center and working out the way, and with the older traditional method, you start at the outside and work inwards.
Wow.
So these are very, you know, what I'm showing you right now is a very traditional type of Shetland shawl. And then a lot of the designs that I have gone on to do for shawls in particular, I like to use the modern method. So in fact, one of the very first ones that I ever put up instructions for on Ravelry is this one, which is Aestlight, it's called.
A-E-S...
A-E-S-T.
T-light, one word.
Yeah, it just means east light in Shetland dialect. So again, same thing, you start at the bottom here of the garter stitch triangle, you work the triangle, and then instead of, this is just a different Shetland lace pattern that's used here, and then the edging is just a simple edging that's attached on at the end. And when I published this, which was probably 2006 or 7, at that time, nobody had really put up instructions for
2009,
a Shetland style.
actually.
What's that? 2009?
2009.
Okay. Yeah, so nobody had put up instructions for a Shetland style shawl at that point. So it was a new thing for people, it definitely introduced a lot of people to a different kind of shawl construction. So it definitely hit a mark and was very popular with people, and still is. For me, it's still a great selling pattern. And this one, you could knit it, this is fingering weight, but you could knit it in lace weight. You could knit it in, you really could knit it in any weight of yarn.
It's if I can go back, just because we have some people asking questions. So let me see, the Hansel, both the full version and the half version of the Hansel is like a fingering weight, so it would really look good both in our baby yak silk or the new baby yak cotton blend that we have. And I was just looking at the colors that you have there. We have 2 new colors coming out tomorrow, after tomorrow, but that would be really look good with that, even if you have a garter stitch in even the lace held double or something, and then you use this for the color. I think that would be very good for that. And also your Aestlight also is a light fingering. I mean, I'm just taking that. This is the Savitri, the baby yak silk. It would be really pretty in it. And it's because it's small. I think I'm trying to look at the yardage here. Is between 440 and 550 yards. So with just 3 skeins of this, you will be able to, or 4 skeins, you will be able to do it. I can think about the orange or like a lovely color, or the blue, or anything that you want to, like the purple. I think that would be nice. I have to stick in a purple and a pink, of course. I try not to show the pink, but that. Somebody was asking if the Valtigarth could also be knit in our cashmere. Grazie Luciana per averlo chiesto. I just said I was ready. I mean, this is the Raku Fioccoli cashmere, 100% Tibetan ethically sourced cashmere, and in the lace. So this would be amazing in the cashmere, because it's, if you make the small version, so you only have 2 skeins, so it's more affordable as well. I think any color, I definitely, the blue, I just have a couple of colors here. This is Boro Light, or Teroldego as well, or the green, as I'm in a green mood.
Oh, that's
so look at that.
That's a nice green, yeah.
Yeah, so any of that, or any of the other colors, and it's just 2 skeins, so we don't have much left of this for the time being, but we still have a few skeins if you're watching now. And I see pictures. It's very nice because on the Hansel wrap, I actually see the picture with the wrap that you say with the baby. Is you have it up on Ravelry. If you go on Ravelry, guys, you have to do it, because the photos of the baby wrapped in the Hansel wrap is so cute. I think I just want to have another baby just to do that.
Well, I've made it for lots of friends, babies at this point.
I'm sure you have. It's so gorgeous.
And it's a really special thing to give, as a gift, a shawl like this, a traditional shawl. Yeah.
So again, the cashmere. So for the Baltico again, it will be 2 or 3 skeins. So it will be 2 skeins of the baby yak lace, or of the cashmere for the smaller version. So this version that I have up here, and 3 skeins for the larger version. So splurge and get a larger version. but that would be, or one in each color, I think. One large and one medium as well. And let me go back. So you also have another pattern that you want to talk about. Is the other two patterns?
Yeah. So these again, just to show more examples of the Shetland construction, the modern hat construction. These are in lace weight, so same kind of construction. Again, it's just a plain garter stitch triangle in the center, but these have, this one is called flukra, F-L-U-K-R-A, another Shetland word. And
what does it mean?
It means like a large snowflake, like a large snowflake, which this pattern is called a bead lozenge.
It's gorgeous.
And it has that sort of effect. And it's lace every row, so it's lace on both the right and the wrong side. So it's a very open, again, very light fabric that it creates, worked in lace weight. I think I used a US 6 needle for this. And so it's very open. And typically, especially if you're only knitting in one color, Shetland shawls are reversible because they are worked on a garter stitch background. So in this case, there's definitely, you can't tell the right or wrong side of the shawl. So that's one of them. And then the other one, different lace pattern. This one is called Lauren, L-O-R-E-N. And this is a really fun stitch pattern. It creates this very defined hole to it. It's quite a short repeat. Not a very easy one to get used to looking at on a chart, but the effect is very cool on this one. So again, this is also lace weight.
Yeah, I think I will. It looks gorgeous. I don't think I will attempt that yet. I think maybe after 3 trips to Shetland, and 3 years of knitting and more, I think I can attempt Lauren. Lauren also is you use a lace weight. Yeah, I just see the lace weight, so definitely would look really good in our lace weight as well. And it doesn't. You only have you only take 650 yards, 594 meters. So basically, 2 skeins. 2 skeins of the baby yak, you can make that. So that's amazing. That's good. This goes. So now this one were part of the book. No, these are self-published patterns.
Those were just self-published patterns from a few years ago. Yeah.
But let's go back to Shetland for a second. No, let's go back. Sorry, let's go back to the books. Mm-hmm. We didn't really talk. Let's not go back to anyway. We didn't talk about books. So let's talk about the books now. I have, as usual, I always say I have a plan, and then the plan goes poof, and I'm just jumping. Sorry, I'm just jumping from one thing to the other. First, I love the name, the Shetland Trader. It just, maybe because we work in nomads and you have all, the trading between, on the Silk Road and everything else. Just the word trader and Shetland together is really nice.
Well, so the name was adopted by my mum when she set up her knitwear business. So she started her business in the 70s in Shetland, and she was trying to decide what to call it. And my parents were by the pier, by the water in Lerwick, the main town in Shetland, and there was a boat there that's called the Shetland Trader, and they decided that would be a good name for the business. And I agree, I love, especially because I come from Shetland, but I don't live there, so I'm in a different part of the world, and I'm sharing these Shetland traditions with people, and so there's this trading, of ideas, and so when I got into my own knitwear design and had my first blog and things like that, I needed a name too, and so I said, well, perfect, the Shetland Trader, I'll take that on.
That's I love the name. So you published 2 books, the Shetland Trader Book 1 and Book 2. The first one was back in 2010, and it has a series of shawl, but also some garments, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this one was all based on Shetland lace patterns that I used in different ways. The cardigan on the cover is a lace weight cardigan, and the pattern is a Shetland lace pattern. And then I believe there are 2 shawls in here, again using Shetland lace designs. There is another cardigan with lace
that's so pretty
on it.
And all the photography was done in Shetland?
Yeah, so Jared Flood did all the photography. It was a really lovely collaboration with different people. I had only recently met Mary Jane at that point, and a whole bunch of us were in Scotland for an event, and I knew that Jared was going to be going up to Shetland, and he hadn't been before, and I knew that I was working on this book, and so I just thought, well, I'll see if he'll be able to take pictures for me, seeing as he's going to be there. So he agreed to do that, and Mary Jane was there, and she really helped with the styling, because she has a lot of experience with that. She did styling for Interweave magazine and things like that. And then Isolde Teague was there at the same time as well. So she's actually modelling in the book. And Jess and Casey Cassidy from Ravelry were there as well. So it was and we were staying near my dad's house, so all the photographs were taken around his property, basically. So yeah, it was very special, and it was my first self-published collection as well, and yeah, it was a good experience.
And that's when your collaboration with Brooklyn Tweed started, or?
It started. It kind of started then, because Jared was just launching the yarn, like Shelter had just come out, and I remember he gave me a skein of that. So initially I was doing designs as part of their Wool People series.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the first collection that they put out, I had a pattern in Shelter. And then a few years later, I was on the design team for a few years. So working much more, with all the yarns at that point. Yeah.
Right. Now the Shetland Trader, both books actually are available both in print form and as a PDF download.
Just PDFs, just ebooks now. Yeah, there might be some copies still available of the second book, but the first book, there aren't any print copies available anymore.
But they're available as ebook.
And all the patterns are available individually.
Individually
as well.
too. Yeah. But I think if you get the full book, is a better deal. It's a better deal. It's cheaper.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I didn't want to use the word cheaper. It's a better deal. So the second one came out in 2014.
Yes. Yeah, and so that one also, the photography happened in Shetland. That was also the same year that Mary Jane and I did our first trip, where we brought a group of knitters to Shetland. And one of the people who came on that trip was somebody we had met before on a different trip that we had done in Iceland. And she is a photographer. And so again, I asked her if she would stay on after the trip to take photographs for the second book.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And so now the third one is going to come out. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so the third book, which will be the Shetland Trader, Book 3, with a subtitle of Heritage, because this collection it's all based on designs of my mum's when she ran a knitwear business in Shetland in the 70s. And her business was all sort of mail order, and so patterns weren't written for the designs. She kind of came up with the ideas, the silhouettes of the garments, and she would kind of give that information to Shetland knitters. They would make it up, and it would be sold directly to the customer. So it was a mail order business. She did have a shop that she sold some things in as well. But yeah, she had a very unique kind of eye for design, and she would pick, again, like talking about those color palettes, she was very drawn to sort of older traditional Shetland colors, slightly more natural shades, I would say. At that time in Shetland, the Scandinavian yoke sort of cardigan was quite a popular thing, right, and often in quite brighter colors. And my mum had gone to the Shetland Museum and saw this very old piece of knitwear using different kinds of traditional Shetland motifs and colors, and she was really taken by that. As I said, my mum was not from Shetland. She was from England, so a lot of this stuff was new to her. She moved there because she married my dad, and my dad's side of the family is from Shetland. And initially, the way her business came about was that she asked a next door neighbor, in fact, at the time, to make things for her kids. So before I came along, it was my older brother and sister. And again, she was kind of saying what she wanted the garment to look like. And then, the knitter would make it. And friends of hers saw these and were like, oh, those are really cool. Can, you get some made for us too? So it kind of came out of that for her, her getting things made for us as kids. Oh, wow. And then she started doing, adult garments as well. So, as I said, she sold that business when we left Shetland and I was only 5. So, I grew up being aware that she'd done this at some point in the past, but she wasn't doing anything related to knitting anymore at that point. And she wasn't a knitter either. My mum didn't knit. She just designed all these things. So we didn't have that, conversation or connection as I was growing up. And then when I started to get into knitwear design, obviously I became more curious about what she had done during that time. But unfortunately, at the same time that I got into designing, my mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh, so sorry to hear that.
She lived with it for a long time. She passed away in 2017. But, I was never really able to properly have a conversation with her at the time that I then wanted to,
Yeah.
But she kept a folder all this time with these, with some of the original brochures that she had made up and a lot of photos and things like that. And she had kept some garments, but mostly the kids' things. So most of the adult stuff I had seen in photos. And then over the course of me going back to Shetland, these past 15 years, every now and then, like a piece would show up somewhere. So, maybe a friend had bought one back in the 70s and kept it. And because they knew I was, now designing knitwear, they would bring it out and show me. Sometimes in exhibitions in Shetland, they would show up. Or like I would go somewhere with the group and there would be a special knitwear exhibition and one of her pieces, would be there. And I'd be like, wow, I've never seen that in person before. So gradually I was like, well, and they were very unique things. I, felt compelled at a certain point to go, I really need to do something with these designs and try to recreate them, write patterns for them, make a collection. So that's what this book is all about. Obviously a very personal project and a very special project for me to work on, to reconnect with my mum in that way and sort of, do this investigative work to a certain extent, looking at the photos and the brochures. And she had designed a lot of different things. So I had to decide, okay, what am I going to include in the book and how do I want to approach this? So it's kind of a mixture of some things being, exact replicas, but then other things being, okay, my take on that.
Adapted,
So this is an original Shetland Trader sweater.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
it has
amazing.
Traditional Fair Isle on the top, and then it has lace on the bottom, and that's quite an unusual thing to find the lace and Fair Isle combined in the same garment. It's got a turtleneck, it's got these big balloon sleeves, so that was the kind of stuff she was doing, and floor-length skirts and dresses with Fair Isle, all this amazing stuff. So several years ago when I was in Shetland for with a group, and it was the annual Wool Week event that they hold there. And I saw that this woman who has a business in Shetland where she repurposes old sweaters and makes them into keepsake bears, which is a really lovely idea.
Oh, so
nice. It's a sweater that's meaningful to you, but it gets cut up and made into a bear. So I saw via social media that she had this sweater and another one with different colors. And she had posted a caption, something like "too nice to cut up?" ? And I was like, I had never seen these sweaters in person. So I immediately went to her studio and, said, don't cut them up, She wasn't going to cut them up, but she knew their value and she knew of my mum's business. Right. So she gave them to me.
Oh, nice.
Which was, really kind of her. And that was sort of my instigation. Okay, right, I'm going to do this book. So this sweater was like one of the first ones that I basically, recreated it. Right. And as I said, no patterns were written. And usually when these were being made, when my mum ran her business, anything that was plain stocking net would have been done on a knitting machine. Yeah. And then the Fair Isle and the lace would have been hand knit. So so I just took each piece that I was going to include in the book and decide, okay, how am I going to approach the construction of this? So I basically, this is it's the same sweater, but this is the version I knit.
So the one you showed before is the actual original?
Yeah.
Oh, so wow.
This is the original. It has the label, the Shetland Trader label.
Oh, so special.
Yeah, very special. And then I just totally, recreated it. The same colors existed in Shetland yarn. I got them from, this one is in Jameson and Smith Shetland yarn, and basically, recreated it entirely. And then again, as part of my mum's business, the customer would have some options when they were picking things. So they could say, I just want a crew neck instead of a turtleneck, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, well, again, the same thing, I want to include that in the pattern. So not everybody wants a big balloon sleeve. So we made versions, there are 3 versions of this in the book. So like this one has just straight sleeves. And actually this one also has a plain lace. So there's no striping in the lace.
Yeah, okay. I see the lace now,
Not changing colors. And this one doesn't have the turtleneck, so there's a crew neck option instead. So that's kind of how I approached it. I think there are maybe 10 or 11 things in the book, but with the different options.
With the different versions, so it's very rich.
More.
Yeah.
And the shawl that I did for the book, it's not a Shetland hat construction.
But it's gorgeous.
Thank you. With this one, you start at the outside, so you're casting on lots of stitches and then decreasing to sort of the center point there. But it is a garter stitch based shawl, and this razor shell is what it's called in Shetland. This again is a very common Shetland lace pattern, simple Shetland lace pattern that is good for striping colors.
Wow.
So
how difficult is this one?
Sorry?
How difficult is this one?
I don't think it's difficult. I mean, the lace pattern isn't difficult. It's one of the simple lace patterns.
Right.
So that's just a couple of things from the book.
I think this is the best way to honor your mom, and the fact that you call it heritage is, it's very, very touching. It's and also it is. In a way, it's so nice the fact that you've been able to see the photos and have that folder that she had, and reconnect with people that had those samples. How amazing is that? Even she didn't have the memory with her anymore. So that's really amazing. I'm looking forward for this, to this publication. When is it coming out again?
It'll be available for pre-order in September, and then I think if you're pre-ordering it, you'll get it in October. So it's Pom Pom.
It's a Pom Pom magazine, yeah. The Pom Pom publishing, yeah.
yeah, they're publishing it. And yeah, there'll be lots of promotion for it, you know, leading up. It's been a long time in the works, and also was delayed because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to come out last year, but you know, that didn't happen. So yeah, I'm very eager to share it with everybody, and there'll be more sneak peeks on my social media and Pom-Pom as well, and it will be available to order directly from them or from local yarn stores.
I'm sure that all the stores will have copies as well. Well, that was amazing. Yeah. Do you think you will? I have a couple of questions. You think you will start doing the Shetland trip again?
Oh yes, we definitely will. I mean, we had a group of people scheduled to go last year, and obviously, we didn't do it. So they have been pushed, to next year, because we decided this summer still we couldn't plan for it because we didn't know what travel would be like. So fingers crossed that 2022 will allow that to happen. So the trips that we have organised are already full up because those people were supposed to go before. But yes, we intend to continue with them. I have a newsletter. That's really the best way for people to learn about future trips is to subscribe to my newsletter. I think there's a link for that in my Instagram profile.
I will link it down below as well. Okay. Maybe not now, but in the next day I will add it. And so I will add your Instagram and your website, your newsletter, subscribe as well. So it's good to keep up with all the information. As well, and of course, Instagram is, but also other things. And also, you had a wonderful, sample in the line 11. Name is, we think is Blazipa. We're not sure about the name. I'm probably butchering it, but is a beautiful pullover as well. You have that one there? Yeah. No, yes, you have the. I already packed up most of my things, so I don't even have the magazine available. But luckily, Gudrun is organized.
You can see.
Yeah. This is also done in fingering weight. So again, I think the lace has double, or any of our fingering weight, the new cotton or the baby yak silk would work really well with that as well. And you have one book that I love. I have it again packed away. We talked a lot about apps, and the book of apps that was published with Kate Davis. And you have, do you have the book there? I don't remember if you.
Oh,
you don't
I do not have the book.
Okay,
no, sorry.
But there is one of the pattern that you published there. That is the, how you pronounce that one?
Ayre?
Ayre.
It's named after a beach in Shetland. So the colours from that beach were sort of part of the inspiration for that particular design. And that was a really fun project because, Kate basically invited all these different designers to come up with their version of a hat, meaning an everyday shawl, type of design.
You can see it here.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So for this one, again, I played off of this traditional hat construction. So you make a diamond shape first for the center, and then you attach two triangles to each side of the diamond. So you end up with a very big triangle, but it's kind of a fun construction, take on the traditional Shetland hat. And it's striped in this case, just simple different colors, just to enjoy, the colors that you like, in sort of random stripes. So yeah, that was a really fun project.
That's just beautiful. It's exactly 6 colors, guys. So if you're taking the Kupa or the baby yak silk, I think Kupa because it holds, with the cotton, it holds a little bit better. 6 colors, all of the colors that we have. And this one comes in the book, it's also available as a single download or in this beautiful, amazing book that I have as well. So it's, and it's called Ayre, is Ayre, Lange, Ayre. We will try to link it down below if I remember all of this to do. I have one question when you were talking about how is the tradition these days in Shetland? Are the women still knitting and have an income coming from that, or is sort of disappearing?
No, I would say that knitting is, the interest in Shetland wool and knitting traditions is very strong right now. So obviously it's gone through ups and downs over the years, and particularly in the 70s when oil became a big income for Shetland. A lot of the knitting, there were definitely knitting companies that closed up, and the value and just things of wool itself was very, very low. But there's definitely been a revival, of interest. And I mentioned the Shetland Wool Week, this annual event, which is a celebration of Shetland wool. And that, I think they've done 10 or 11 at this point. And they've just gotten sort of bigger and bigger, and more and more people coming to Shetland for this event. So there's definitely a big interest there, and there are individual designers in Shetland who, it ranges in terms of what they're doing. Like some of them are sticking to very traditional things, and selling finished garments. Others, there's a textile degree program that is run at the Shetland College. So people who live there can take this degree program, and it's quite focused on machine knitting, versus hand knitting. But that's really interesting to see as well. Like what are people doing in a more contemporary context? Because I think it's, I'm a great believer in honoring traditions, but at the same time, you have to adapt and change,
of course.
So there's definitely that happening as well. So there's a pretty vibrant scene for sure. And I think one of the things that more recently was let go from the primary schools, like the elementary schools. There used to be a knitting teacher that would come around all of the different schools, even if it was a tiny school far away, and introduce these skills to the children if they weren't getting that from their parents, and that was cut, as a lot of these things are. But there is still a movement, to make sure that children are exposed to this. So there are after-school clubs where probably mostly older women are coming in and sharing their skills, and there's great interest in it. And there's a group called the Peary. Peary is a word that means small in Shetland. So the Peary Mackers, and Mackin is the word for knitting in Shetland. So these are like the little knitters. The small knitters, the little knitters. And it's amazing. I mean, they make incredible things. You would, just like, wow. So there's definitely an investment there from the whole community, really, to make sure that continues.
Wow, thank you so much. This has been so interesting. I think I'm happy that the last one in this studio was done with you, because it's so rich and informative, and I think it just does a nice closure for this phase of mYak, and finishing up with these beautiful shawls as well. I think while we wait to go all to Shetland, and we should all meet there in one of the future trips that Gudrun and Mary Jane are going to organize, I invite you all to check out Gudrun's on Instagram and on Ravelry. She has tons of design. When it was a question of trying to see what we should show and what we should showcase for today's, I was like, oh, what about this, what about that? There were so many choices. So grab 1 to 10, 15 patterns today, and grab some yarn if you feel like it. Start knitting. I think it would be nice to maybe get back in a couple of months and see what people have need of your design.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
And we're looking forward for the new Shetland Trader. We will watch out for that publication. And of course, hopefully we will be able to meet in somewhere in one of the next opportunity, one of the next festival coming up in person.
That would be lovely.
Thank you very much. Remember, guys, if you're watching it, if you like it, put some comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe and let your friends know about the channel as well. And sending love to everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. Is it? Yes, it's almost the weekend. We are midweek.
It's summertime.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gudrun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.